What is the craziest thing you witnessed at a party? There's a certain club in Berlin. If you go to the men's bathroom, you're almost certainly going to run into this one guy who's been there for years, who will beg you and other random men to piss on his face, and thank you if you do. He will do it for hours every night. He is pretty polite and doesn't force you to piss on him, though he will beg you for it. I've seen a lot of crazy things, but this one dude is impossible to forget. I was in a band. The crowd was invited to the after-party for a show. The guitarist was pretty interesting. He invites two chicks that are friends to wrestle in a kiddie pool full of vegetable oil. I had been in a committed relationship for a couple years at this point. Still wanted to watch, but was not wanting to be disloyal. So the crowd is watching the two girls go at it. I watch until their tops come off, then exit the party. I see a very sad-looking kid, maybe 12 or 13 years old, standing outside. Remembering being that age and feeling bad, I say, "Hey kid, why so sad? You should go into the party. There's two chicks wrestling with their boobs hanging out." "That's my sister," he said. I felt so awful. Ended up hanging out with him to try to make him feel better. Okay, this is so weird that even though it happened to me, I still kind of can't believe it. Austin, Texas, 2008-ish. I was living with 6 people in Hyde Park, and all of us were under 30, and kind of a hot mess. We were all good friends and would drink way too much and go to parties all the time. So one of my roommates hits me up and tells me about a party nearby and gives me the address. I don't really know anyone there, but I don't really care, because I'm gonna go get drunk anyways. So I ride my bike over to some apartment complex and start looking for the right app number. I take a turn around one of the buildings and suddenly I see a fully naked 20-something girl making out with a fully clothed 20-something dude in the parking lot. She is pressing him up against the wall and both of them are too busy to notice me. So I nope the fuck right out of there, and wonder how the fuck anyone could be that bold. I repeat, this girl was full-on naked, like without any socks or nothing, in a parking lot alley of sorts at night. I finally find the right apartment and my roommate still has not made it. I break the ice with all these strangers by telling them about this weird-ass scenario that just happened, and everyone has a good laugh. It turns out a bunch of them live here too, and they start to ask me what they looked like. Just as I am finishing the details about what the guy was wearing, and what the girl's hair looked like, the people that were fucking walk right in the door. Dead silence. Then straight up, "Hey, this new kid just saw you fucking in parking lot," followed by howling and cackling. The girl, who was surprisingly clothed now, turned bright red and dragged the speechless guy she was with to her room in dead silence. By this point, I felt like I fucked up. I knew it would be a good icebreaker, but I never would have in a million years expected them to walk in the door. Then someone who lived there said not to worry about it and handed me a beer. Host and their boyfriend having sex in the middle of the room, and everyone else just sitting around watching TV and not really that bothered. Something similar. In high school, we were having a party, and a buddy of mine started raw-dogging this chick right in front of us. About 10 of us. Being that we were in high school, we watched. Not me personally, but my brother with some friends were having a garden party late into the night. Other 2 friends were supposed to arrive later. So my brother sees headlights from car and 2 people coming to garden. It was midnight maybe, but it was dark. So he grabbed some bread they had for BBQ, rolled it into balls, and went on to surprise the guys. He jumped out of nowhere in the dark, throwing the bread and yelling. Well, the next few seconds he was laying on the ground, face down with knee on his back. Police arrived because neighbors called them to calm the noise. Anyways, he explained everything and it ended peacefully. Fun story. A very fat friend of mine was extremely drunk and said, "I'm gonna do a flip," and did a complete front flip, landing on a plastic chair, which broke and sliced his arm open. An extremely drunk high guy. I have no idea. He was wobbling around and hallucinating, and he made my bed. I watched, also fairly drunk, from the corner of my room as he fell on top of it over and over while attaching the sheets and tucking them under the mattress. Guy's mother must have drilled some crazy sense of duty into him. A girl I know broke up with her boyfriend at a party. He was so mad and drunk that he took both his hands and formed a hammer and smashed through a windows. Next thing you know, he is on his knees, pissing blood, with both of his arteries severed. One dude that kept his shit together teared his shirt apart and tied both his arms and carried him like a potato sack in his car and flew to the hospital. He saved his life in front of our eyes. We were like 20 people who saw this and nobody, but this guy did anything. We all stood there like idiots. A girl once lectured me about how dangerous cannabis is after she had just done a line of my coke. My buddy once lectured me for sharing a vape pen with a stranger outside a bar, pre-COVID, after he had just returned from the bathroom from doing lines of Molly off the toilet seat. Guy showed up with a duck on a leash. Fucking wild, man. I opened the wrong door and witnessed a girl start to vomit on my friend's dick as she was sucking it. House party in college, standing in the kitchen. It was low-key. Everyone was 1 or 2 degrees separated, so not a rager. A guy was doing a shot of Captain Morgan with a few others. He poured it out of an Nalgene bottle that everyone got at orientation. The guy was one of the heavier drinkers in the group, so he was already pretty deep in the sauce. After they all threw the shots back, he had that look. The maybe I can hold this one down look. He couldn't hold it down. Luckily, he was nearest the kitchen sink when he threw up. But what came out was not normal. The unholy liquid that came from his mouth was deep red with chunks of what looked like muscle. A thin fluid with just masses of meat and other things. It was like an 80s movie special effect after a guy gets shot in the head. And all this was just thrown into a stainless steel kitchen sink and surrounding countertop. Before he was even done purging, he just groaned, screamed, turning on the water faucet while simultaneously scrapping the red vomit into the basin. Everyone was horrified. Turns out the guy had spent the day at a diner eating all-you-can-eat fried chicken with cherry cake for dessert with a group of friends. And also turns out the guy was me. I was that guy. Got a gun pointed at my crotch by the girl whose apartment the party was at. She laughed and said it wasn't loaded. Then some guy called her back over to the table where he was sitting. He said, "Give me that," and proceeded to pull out the magazine. I left about then. My granddad likes to say, it's always an unloaded gun that kills someone. Luckily, that wasn't the case this time. My friend's older brother Tim showed up uninvited. All night he kept asking everyone if they had seen his twin sister. She's here somewhere. I thought it was a little weird because he doesn't have a twin sister, but I shrugged it off. There was probably 80, 100 people there. All night he makes it a point to ask each and every group, each and every single person if they had seen his twin sister. He can't find her. Around 1 a.m., in one swift movement, he tucks his wiener between his legs, drops his pants to his ankles, kills the stereo and starts screaming, twin sister, while quickly shuffling all through the party. Good job, Tim. It was towards the end of the night and one guy was asleep on a living room chair, legs over one arm and leaning back against the other arm. He woke up just as he was about to vomit, and his friend literally dove in to catch the vomit with his hands. We didn't want to mess the house being underage drinkers. That wasn't the crazy bit, though. Sleepy guy had caught his own vomit in his hand and said, "It's okay, I got this," and scooped it back into his mouth, swallowed it, then went back to sleep. It's been over 10 years since it happened, and I will never forget watching that. I walked into a literal fuck pile once. Judging by the amount of limbs, there were at least 5 people in it, with another 6 smoking pot and drink-ong booze sitting around the pile, like it was a weird bonfire. Edit. So this doubled my karma in one go. And my first medals as well. Thanks. Guy had a warrant out for his arrest for something stupid. No idea what. He saw flashing lights outside and panicked. He climbed out a tiny bathroom window without telling anyone, and spent almost 2 hours on the roof, hiding in case the police came back. It wasn't the police. It was the meter maid checking for parking violations. I went to a house party that got out of control. I was part of the clearing out squad, and I found a very coked up dude in the bathroom washing his face in the sink, which appeared to filled with blood, like horror movie levels of blood. Apparently he was punched in the face by somebody with a big ring which had sliced his nose essentially off. I will never forget him stuperously turning towards me to say something, and his nose following his head on a 2-second delay like a door on a hinge. He looked like Red Skull from the Marvel movies. Drinking with a bunch of friends, one guy's is smashed and spills his full drink all over the floor. He grabs the mop from the closet and starts mopping it up while the rest of us give him a hard time for wasting alcohol. Deadpan takes the mop, lifts it above his head and wrings it out into his mouth. A car of girls showed up who knew this one girl at the party already. They had been partying elsewhere earlier and fairly hard too. By the time they get to our party, one girl's so drunk she shit in the back of her friend's car and passed out. Girls do indeed poop and can ruin the back of a Toyota Corolla. It was a nice car. Watched a hot Asian girl just hike up her skirt and start finger blasting herself in the living room at a college party. TBH as a 19-year-old student, I watched for a solid 3, maybe 4 mins before I mentioned it to another girl, and she took her away. 4 Loko was a hell of a thing before it was changed, banned. A girl knocking herself unconscious on the edge of the sink whilst in the middle of threesome. Scariest moment of my life. Hey, fantastic audience! Today I'm bidding you farewell, but it's not the end of our connection. Hop on over to the channel, drop a comment sharing your thoughts, and ensure you're subscribed. Because trust me, you won't want to miss out on the exciting things coming up.